All right, fam. We are back for episode number 2 of the Dream Coach podcast. I am super excited today. We have a very special guest, a very good friend of mine. And it's actually crazy because the first real interaction I had with this guy was actually on an interview where I interviewed him on almost the same exact topic that we're going to be talking about today. My friend Justin Khoe, welcome, bro.
Hey man, super stoked to be here. It's been fun watching your journey last couple of years, and yeah, man, that conversation set you on a journey where look at you now,
Bro.
amazing. And I'm hoping
Dude.
that maybe today, as we get to chat, same level of breakthrough, impact, level up, whatever you want to call it. I'm excited because I believe God's got something here for us in the conversation and for anyone listening. So super stoked to
So
be here.
good. Thank you, bro. Yeah, man. Dude, I'll just say this out loud in public, bro. I see you as a big bro, as a mentor of sorts. Somebody who has stepped out in faith in a way that I have not seen many people do. And that is just your level of courage and like you're a pioneer, man. You are a trailblazer, especially in the area of ministry and entrepreneurship. This is something that I've never seen. Even if I'm thinking about it now, I don't think I really know anybody that's doing it in the way that you've done it and are currently doing it. Um, yeah. Well, let's before we even get here, because I know some people don't know who you are, right? If you guys don't know him, look him up. I'll put his links in the description as well, so you can check him out. Um, but bro, give us some background. Who are you? What do you do? Like, yeah, just a real quick introduction for somebody that may not know you.
Yeah, my name is Justin Khoe. I am a content creator and I guess a coach in the world of online ministry. So I really am excited about that intersection between faith and the online space. And so the branding, I guess, if you will, the descriptor that I feel most accurately captures my heart with everything that I do is what I call a digital missionary. And that's a term that I coined almost 10 years ago. So it's been 9 years for me that I've been on this journey. But
Wow.
at the very beginning, the long story short is I was teaching at a Bible college, came to find a young person who's a part of the program that I was leading. And his whole journey of faith got started because of a YouTube video, which completely like caught me off guard. At that time, I don't know if any of your listeners grew up in the church space, but we're talking about 2015 or so. At least in my corner of the world, the conversation was that social media and the internet is evil. It's this terrible thing. It's rotting our brains and it's addictive and has all these kind of negative effects. And fair enough, I think that's still largely the case. And then when I heard this kind of anecdote about how the internet was used for good for this young man, I was like, man, like this kind of blows my mind. So long story short, about a year into creating YouTube content as kind of a hobby and just for fun, really felt led that this was the time for me to quit my job and go all in on social media. And for context, I think I was averaging something like 30 views a video. So there was no good reason why you should quit your job from any metric other than I had a firm belief that this is what God was calling me to do. And so for the first several years of this journey, this was a passion project. And the way that I visualized what I was doing was that I was a missionary. Some of us, like my wife, for example, she did a year in the Philippines as a missionary, where basically you're getting paid no money. If not, you're actually paying money to go to another part of the world and to try and make an impact on that community. And so the connotation of missionaries are often people who are broke. And so that was the way that I described what I was doing. I'm playing around on the internet, trying to make an impact, and I'm broke is basically what digital missions to me was all about. And 9 years in, can't be broke still because I got a kid, and I'll break the news here on this podcast first. Got another one on the way. And so
Yes,
being broke is no longer an option. I got to figure out how to make this thing work. And
that's it.
God has been good. Last couple of years, we figured some things out along the way. And so far, it's been working.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. Thank you for sharing. Bro, I want to go back to something you just said. Starting out, you decided to go all in. Like, you were working a full-time job and you decided to leave it behind and go all in. What was the shift? What took place, and what made you say, you know what, I'm going for it?
Yeah, man, I think it's just conviction. I think that entrepreneurs, generally speaking, are the kinds of people that can see something that no one else sees. You know, this is what we mean when we say that someone is visionary by nature. And I don't know that that's a term that I want to adopt necessarily, but it seems as though that people who are entrepreneurs tend to see what could be. Right? In order to start a company, in order to be creative any way, shape, or form, I think that you must have the kind of lens that sees what could be in spite of what is.
That's good.
And kind of in the business world, that's entrepreneurship. In the faith space, that's literally faith. Faith is the ability to see things that others can't. And then the courage to pursue what could be at great risk. And so, you know, for me, it was this idea of, well, how does the internet how can the internet be used within the faith space? Further background context, my ministry up to this point was largely door-to-door sales. So I would go door-to-door, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. I did this for 10 years straight. And so I have personally knocked on over 100,000 doors. And the reason why I was doing this is because I was thinking, you know, if I want to have an impact on the world, if I want to reach people with a message that I think changes people's lives, the simple way to reach the most amount of people is like, well, literally go knock on their doors and find those people. And then when my paradigm was shifted to the internet, I realized, oh my goodness, I don't have to be limited by what I can accomplish with some blood, sweat, and tears. If I learn how to do this thing online, I can reach more people and potentially even have a deeper connection with those individuals through the internet. And so it was that belief, it was that kind of faith that this thing could work together. And when I looked around, no one was doing it. Like almost literally no one was doing it. I could count on one hand, and I didn't even need all of my fingers. I could count on one hand how many people that I could find in the entire world that were doing what I was thinking God was calling me to do. And so rather than just kind of complain and just say, man, this is what should be taking place, and then not doing anything about it, I just really felt that it's better to be a part of a change that you want to see in the world rather than only criticize. You know, if I'm in a church, I would say something like, no one's spiritual gift is criticism, right? So rather than just merely playing armchair coach and telling people what should happen, I wanted to get in the game and say, all right, I'm going to make a difference in the best way that I can. And I was just listening to a podcast with Hormozy, and he said something to the effect of like, put in so many repetitions that it's unreasonable for you to fail.
The volume,
you know, as a door-to-door person who's knocked on over 100,000 doors, that I get. That thinking of like, well, you know, sometimes you got to get through hundreds of rejections to find the person that really is saying yes. And that type of thinking has served me so well as a coach, as an entrepreneur, just the resiliency to believe in a mission, to believe in a message, and to be willing to put in the repetitions so that it's unreasonable for you to fail.
Yeah, that's good. I want to ask you this. This is off the cuff. It's just coming to my mind right now. Because, bro, you have so many skills and giftings, right? Like, you are awesome when it comes to creating content, when it comes to editing, when it comes to, even like personal brand and just building things. Like, you know, I've watched you from the sidelines, and I've seen you do awesome things. And a question I have for you is like, has there been a moment in your journey or in your life where you have felt like, you know what, screw this missionary stuff, like let me start a business that's gonna make me a lot of money? Super vulnerable question, but it's just like something that came to mind. Yeah.
Truth be told, no, I don't think so. I think I think about it, if I'm prone to think about it in extremes, I actually think it in the opposite direction. I'm more prone to be like, all right, I'm going to take a vow of poverty. I'm just going to do what I feel called to do. And if I make no money, then I'm game. So when it comes to faith, I actually need more faith in the opposite direction rather than saying, you know what, this missions thing is not worth it. I find myself on the opposite end of the spectrum.
Gotcha. Well, and this is because you know the impact that Jesus has had in your life, right? The gospel has transformed your life. And for that reason, you've taken up this cause as like, dude, I'm going all in for his sake, not for my sake, not to build a kingdom in my name, right? Could you speak a little bit on that?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you an example. When I knew that my wife was the person that I wanted to commit my life to, before we got to that kind of inflection point of proposing and planning a wedding and everything else like that, I sat down with her to have a real heart-to-heart. We've been dating. Things have been going really well. There's clearly a vibe that's going on. And I basically had a conversation with her where I was like, yo, there's the exit. Like, if you want the off-ramp, here it is. And the reason why we had this kind of heart-to-heart, this real somber conversation was I wanted to let her know what I was committed to, what my values were. I said, hey, man, you know what? The way that I live my life, I want every step along the journey for me to prioritize one thing and one thing only. And it's this question of, well, God, what do you want me to do? I want to live a life of radical obedience to God, so much to the extent that I don't make plans for the future. I don't know what the future holds. Right now, sure, I'm being called to be this teacher, and that's going to be great, but I don't know what the future holds, and I genuinely didn't know. Clearly, I didn't think that I'd be doing the thing that I'm doing right now. And I told her, you know, I might be called to a third world country tomorrow. And if that becomes clear to me, like as in like if that's really what I believe God is calling me to do, I want you to know that my decision is yes before I know what it is. Meaning, like, God gets a perpetual yes to anything that he wants. And like, I'm willing to go. And I say that, I was having this conversation with her to tell her, I know that not everyone wants to live life like that. That to some people, that might be kind of scary.
Right.
And
it is.
I want to let you know that this is not going to change. This is just how my life is. And if you're not down for that type of uncertainty and the wild roller coaster of what that could be like, then I totally get it. Like, that's not like a negative on you, but I want to let you know that that's my commitment. These are my values. This is how I'm going to orient my life for the rest of my life. And if that's not cool with you, like, it's probably better for us now to have this conversation than years into the future when things get more complicated with things. And you know, so we left that conversation. I felt sick to my stomach because I didn't know what her response would be. She spent a couple days thinking about it and praying about it, and ultimately came back and said, "You know what? I'm in. Like that's actually a life that I'm down for." And it's a good thing she said that because, you know, we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary 5 days ago.
Let's go.
So 10 years in, and if I've done the math correctly, it's either 9 or 10 times we have moved in 10 years.
Wow.
And that's across the country. We moved from the West Coast to Philly. We moved from Philly back to the West Coast. We moved from the West Coast to Hawaii, and we moved from Hawaii back to the West Coast. So we've traveled the equivalent of cross country 1, 2, 3, 4 times with several other moves in the middle of all that. And it's every single one of those moves has been a journey of faith, meaning every single one of those moves, there was a considerable amount of risk involved. Right. There were good reasons to consider this is not a good decision, yet we made the decision because we felt like this is what God was calling us to do. And so to my wife's credit, she's the one that has empowered this journey of faith, even down to the point of this first move when I decided to quit my job teaching. I come home and I say, hey, I think God's made it clear. I think that he wants me to do this online ministry thing, which if you read between the lines, it's like, I'm not going to get paid. Like, I don't know if I ever will get paid, but this is what God's called me to do. And to my wife's credit, she's like, all right, like, let's do it. Let's make it happen. And so for the first, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years, somewhere in that range. I forget the exact details. But for the first several years, she really held the fort down as I was learning and growing. You talk about this, and I appreciate it, that there are things that you see that I've got competencies in. When I first started, I had none of those. Like, I
Right.
didn't know how to hold a camera. I was not even part of the yearbook class, which might date me now because there's no yearbook classes like anymore. Like, people are building robots and
How
they're doing
old are you, bro?
STEM and they're doing so much more advanced. I did not know how to edit a single thing. I never
Yeah.
took a graphic design class. There was no Canva at the time. AI was not a
Right.
thing. So, it took me 20 plus hours to create a single piece of content at that time.
Mm.
And so I had to learn as much as I possibly could. And
Yeah.
I didn't really have a guide. It's not like I ever took a class on any of these things. And so the deck was stacked against us, so to speak. And yet
Right.
the vision of what could be was so strong that we pursued it with our full heart.
Dude, incredible. Honestly. Yeah. It's crazy how being a missionary and being an entrepreneur, it's like being a missionary is being an entrepreneur for the Lord. Like
Yeah,
like
totally.
it's like the same type of heart and spirit that's required to go into it, because it's risk. It's, again, seeing what nobody else sees. It's having that vision of the future, in spite of the circumstances around you. Um, I do want to ask you this, though. This is a question that's coming to my mind. How in the midst of all this, how did you discern, like, yo, this is the Lord? Like, he's saying this right here.
That's a good question. I guess it's been a little bit different each time, every move that we've made.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I would probably need a lot more time to unpack what that looks like, but
Okay.
I'm of the persuasion that God still speaks to his children. I'm of the persuasion that he still communicates plans for his kids. The promise, if anyone lacks wisdom, all you got to do is ask God. God grants wisdom. And so sometimes those decisions look like simply through prayer, my wife and I, and maybe a few close trusted friends. Sometimes it looked like weighing options out and taking calculated risks. Sometimes it looked like just literally submitting our plans to mentors that knew better and trusting their judgment over our life. So every one of them is a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there's so many common themes that might be useful here, but I think the bedrock foundation is probably this. God still is interested in the details of our lives, and therefore we can trust him as we get to make these decisions.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, and we're not, this is a general podcast for online entrepreneurship. It's open to anybody, but we're not also going to hinder our worldview, right? Our what we believe as followers of Jesus. And yeah, man, no, I asked that because now I'm going to share a little bit, be vulnerable about myself. I've been going through some shifts, and I've been going through some um, changes in terms of, like, I've shared with you that I was doing porn addiction recovery coaching, and was able to see success in that early on, and have since kind of shifted or pivoted, even though I'm still working with some individuals, some clients in that area of porn addiction, helping people step into this online space in order to um, just be free, to use the gifts that God has given them, to make some extra income off of their expertise, etc. But there has been a lot of me having to check my heart before
Hmm.
God and say, like, all right, what is my actual intention? Like, where am I actually at? Like, what am I trying to build here?
Hmm.
Right. And I think this is like a major question that we need to ask ourselves. Right. And this is even for people that aren't Christian. Like, what are you building? Like, with the inputs that you're putting in, the time, the energy, the content that you're making, the messaging that you're putting out, if that becomes its fullest form, what does it look like? And is that something that you want to build? Right. And this is a biblical principle. It's like, in the book of Luke, right? Jesus says to count the cost
Hmm.
before you start building. Make sure that what you're actually going to build is something you want to build, and that you actually have it in you to build that thing. Right. So these are just a couple things that I'm processing. Like, I'm asking these questions for myself, and I'm sure the audience is gonna benefit from it as well. Um, So tell me a little bit, because you started off doing content as a hobby. You went into, okay, I'm doing online ministry full time. At what point, or how did you actually start to make a living off of that? Because with every missionary, right, and this is biblical as well, you have Paul, who, yes, he invited the churches to give generously out of what they wanted to give for the sake of mission work, for the sake of building up the kingdom, building up churches. And Paul was also an entrepreneur as a tent maker, because
Mm-hmm.
he didn't want the people to think that he was just trying to get money out of people or swindling people or taking advantage of them. So he said, listen, I have the right to ask for funds from you guys, but um, I'm going to work and earn a living and do the ministry so that I am completely blameless before you. So talk to me a little bit about what the transition looked like to actually um, start monetizing, and maybe like the theology behind that. Like how did you reconcile that as a digital missionary, but also as somebody who's like starting a business?
Yeah, this is actually a question that I get a lot with students in my program, the Digital Missionary Academy. There's
Mm-hmm.
always, I have yet to meet someone who doesn't have this tension of like, I just want to
Mm,
do things for free for the sake of it because I believe in it and
right.
because, I want people's lives to be better. That's always on the
Right.
one hand what they want. And on the other
Yeah.
hand, there's this feeling, there's this fear that
Yeah.
somehow attaching money to that whole equation makes
Mm,
you disqualified. It's
mm-hmm.
ethically wrong. Spiritually, it's irresponsible to do so. And I think that a lot of that sensitivity comes from the many ways that, say, the televangelist stereotype has been
Yeah.
perceived. That there are people
Yeah.
out there flying private jets and buying
Mm-hmm.
mansions and doing all these things that is really reckless. And there's a
Mm-hmm.
concern that they don't lose the heart of what they're
Yeah.
about
Right.
in entering into the discussion about, well, what does it look like to figure out the money side of things. And I'm very
Mm-hmm.
sympathetic to that. That's absolutely how I was stressed out about it. But now when I talk to students about that, especially if they're vocationally speaking, if they're pastors, what I try to do is I try to hold up the mirror to them and say, I don't know if you knew this already, but there's
Mm-hmm.
two things I want you to be aware of. Number one, you are already a content creator because my
Mm-hmm.
world is online social media content creation, broadly speaking. So number one,
Mm-hmm.
you're already a content creator. What do you mean? Every weekend you get on a stage and you
Mm-hmm.
deliver the content that you've been working on all week. That we call it a sermon, but it is content. You
Mm-hmm.
literally are a content creator by trade. Observation number two, holding up the mirror number two. You're already monetizing this ministry. You're literally getting paid a salary from the local church. That is to say that
Right.
you, on some fundamental level, are comfortable with the value exchange of delivering the word of God in exchange for money.
Mm.
And I'm holding up the mirror that
Right.
you are already comfortable with this.
Mm-hmm.
This other area of your life, as far as doing it as a coach or a content creator, digital missionary, whatever term you want to use, is just another version of that. So that one of two things can be true. Number one, either your concerns are understandable, but perhaps unwarranted. I think that's option number one. Or option number two, you got to volunteer as a pastor for the rest of your life and be bivocational and work a secular trade so that you can volunteer as a pastor, which is also a noble route. And I actually think that either conclusion you come to, it's noble, it's good, it's consistent, but I'm just simply offering all the primary concerns that you have. You've already figured out how to solve that when you accept the call to vocational ministry. And beyond that, I love the passage where it talks about how those who are committed to the preaching of the gospel, I think this is in Timothy, he talks about are worthy of a double honor. And that word honor is not just respect, it's literally like a monetary value. So that what the scripture is actually revealing is that if you preach the gospel, you're not worthy of just a single salary, but you're worthy of a double salary. So that there's almost, and this starts to feel a little bit like prosperity gospel. And for context, I'm not necessarily a prosperity gospel preacher in the least bit. Like, that's not my vibe. But there's certainly a precedent to say that, you know what? If I have this inverse relationship to money as a minister of the gospel and earning a living appropriately,
Yeah.
I'm actually doing it at the expense of what scripture says. Now, this doesn't mean that you necessarily have to chase and pursue monetary wealth, but it at least
Yeah.
should be paused to say, why am I feeling funny about it? And maybe it's something deeper that's at work. And what I found that for me, so some of the work that I had to do was a sense of imposter syndrome, a sense of I'm actually not worthy of being, being compensated in this way. I actually had some shame issues. I had some identity issues. I had some worth issues that actually needed to get solved, and that money was a scapegoat for that. And I think that anyone who's beginning the journey as an entrepreneur, as a coach, perhaps, this is one of those fundamental challenges that they come up against. Who am I to say that my time is worth a certain amount of money? Right? On the one hand, we believe that what we do is important. Otherwise, we wouldn't be entrepreneurs. We wouldn't be missional in this perspective.
Yeah.
But directly against that is this lie that somehow I shouldn't be charging. And so some of those things are the biggest challenges that all came to a head for me, because I'd been monetizing ministry kind of in a way that didn't feel challenging to some of those core identity lies that I've been wrestling through. Creating a YouTube video and then getting AdSense from it felt fair.
Right.
No one was actually paying me money. They were consuming it for free. YouTube paid me kind of, via ads, that kind of thing. I would sell merch, or I would do Patreon, so that there were ways that I was earning money. But it always felt like a fair exchange, in the sense of like, I'm giving 10x, 100x the value. People are giving me a couple bucks here and there. All of that was deeply challenged when I met my buddy and my coach, Alejandro Reyes. Shout out to Alejandro. He's an absolute gangster in the space. And he really challenged me to stretch my belief and my conception of what I was worth at the time. And it was a leap of faith to even begin the process. So the very first time that I signed up for coaching, I was at an event in Las Vegas for marketers, and I spent several $1,000s on this coaching program. And I won't mention the name, because truth be told, once I got into the material, it felt like it was a waste of time. The content didn't actually connect with me. It didn't actually help me. And so I was out several $1,000s. And at the time, I was making very little money. I was earning, I think that year I earned $20,000 in revenue. And then I'd spent $18,000 in building the business, because for context, over here now I have cameras and tools that I use for my work. But when you first start off and you quit your job as a teacher, you don't have a camera. You don't have a computer that can edit things. You don't have access to lights and cameras and microphones. And funny enough, like, I actually don't have access to my lights and stuff like that, because all my like studio stuff is literally on a boat right now coming from Hawaii to California. So I'm kind of dealing with what I could fit in a carry-on bag type of a thing. But I didn't have anything. So I was just like, everything that I made, I was reinvesting into the ministry / business. And then I invested several $1,000s and it didn't go anywhere. So I was feeling discouraged. I was feeling a bit lost, and then got to hang out with my boy Alejandro. And long story short, he offered me access to a coaching program. The outcome was he'll help me generate my first $10,000 kind of launch of a brand new product, brand new coaching program. And it would cost me $5,000, which was like 25% of my actual revenue, not even like my take home revenue. So it was like a huge like leap of faith, so to speak. And long story short, ended up doing it. And man, am I glad that I did, because I learned so much. I had to confront some of those insecurities that I had. And I received a skill set that I've been using now multiple years in a row. And that was really the inflection point. That was really the beginning, the before and the after kind of moment.
Wow. So you believe in investing in yourself. That's cool.
Very much so. Yeah.
And absolutely. We all do. We all do it, right? And we've been conditioned to normalize college, whether it's a bachelor's or an associate's or a master's or a doctorate, as a form of investing in ourselves. But when somebody hears, like, there's a guy on the internet who's charging for a coaching program in order for me to learn how to grow my business, it's like, scam.
It's
right?
interesting how that is, because you're right. An undergraduate degree in business and marketing, which is actually what I have. I have a marketing degree. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you go to a brick and mortar institution, that degree will cost you, let's just ballpark it, $100,000.
Yeah.
And what do you get from that? What do you know how to do? I'll
Mm.
say, the program that I was a part of, it was an online college.
Mm-hmm.
This will sound crazy. In the 4-year program that I did, I literally never once opened a textbook.
Okay.
Not once. I watched Shark Tank, and then I was involved in various ministries where I had to learn how to do sales door to door, how I had to run a
Wow.
team, which is a lot like running a business kind of thing. And
Interesting.
my life experience plus what I learned from Shark Tank was apparently enough to get me a bachelor's degree and to finish the program. My
Wow.
point in saying all that is I didn't really learn very much from my marketing degree. I'll be honest. I don't actually feel like any of that has been useful to prepare me for today.
Hmm.
Conversely, I've bought $27 products. I've bought $49 products. I've bought $197 products. I've spent thousands of dollars on coaching with like Alejandro, for example, and other programs over the years. And I'll say that I've learned far more from people who are actually in the field doing the work that I want to do than I ever did from a actual formal degree. And so like this, I get the idea because cash is tight, but so many of us don't think twice about pulling out a student loan to go to college.
Right.
And yet it's something like, I don't know, what's the number? 50% of people after 8 years are in a career that actually didn't need their degree, which is a way of saying that 50% of the time you're wasting $100,000.
Yeah.
So for me, when I think about investing, when I think about getting a coach, for me, it's a bet on myself.
Right.
When I enroll in a college, really what I feel like I'm doing is I'm betting on the institution. Does that institution have enough credibility to warrant me getting a job? And maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But that's a big, big, big bet. Unless you get like a full ride scholarship, then like go for it. Like awesome, congratulations.
Right.
But conversely, when I invest in coaching, it's literally a fraction of the cost. Like for me, consider $5,000 to $100,000. But now what I'm doing is I'm betting on myself. Do I have the ability to learn what someone else has learned and to then leverage that skill set for a much better ROI?
Yeah.
And with Alejandro, and this, most good coaches know about doing a risk reversal kind of a thing. His risk reversal was basically like, I'll guarantee you'll hit 10K in sales off this 5K investment.
Wow.
Otherwise, money back, or otherwise, fill in the blank, whatever. So I was like, all right, it is a risk. It's a calculated risk. The real risk is this: do I just quit? Because that's the only way to lose in that circumstance. I invest 5K and I don't do anything, then it's money out of my pocket. That's my fault. But if I work the program and I'm a good student and I'm applying what I'm learning, the guarantee is 10K. So I'm doubling my investment. The process may take me significantly less than 4 years, which is, college degree. Turned out it took me about 6 months the first time that I kind of went through it, largely because of fear. But at the point that I ended up doing it, here's what happened is the moment I hit start, I spent a lot of time learning things and working up the courage and dealing with insecurities. But at some point I had a starting date, and then I ran the program, and then I looked back, and 2 weeks after I hit start, I launched my first program, launched my first coaching offer, and generated $37,000 worth of sales in 2 weeks. So not only did we hit the 5K investment, not only did we hit the 10K guarantee, but we blew past that in 2 weeks. And now here was the fun part about it, is now I knew what I needed to know to do it again.
Yep.
And again, and again, and again. So, thinking of coaching as far as like an alternative way to doing college as exactly it. And I get the risk in the sense of like, I've invested in courses that were literally worthless to me, but I've also found programs that have absolutely changed my life. And so what I think about it is different. it's a slot machine, right? If you only have to pay a nickel to do the slot machine, but you can get $1 million, maybe that actually makes sense. Well, maybe not real slot machines because the payout is actually not in your favor.
Yeah.
But the difference, what I'm saying is that like you're buying a lottery ticket. You're buying a $100,000 lottery ticket when you go to college. At least with coaching, it's often much cheaper. $25, $100, $1,000, couple $1,000. But the payoff is so much greater. And so for me, that's how I think about coaching. I'm a big fan of it myself. Like I'm still a part of coaching programs because I'm always learning new things. And every time I learn one little nugget, I can turn around and multiply it because I've bet on myself. And so it's been a that's how I think about kind of coaching and ongoing education, that type of thing.
That's good. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And the thing about coaching too is that you're usually being coached by somebody who's done the thing. A lot of college professors haven't done the thing. A lot of college professors have learned to research the thing.
Yeah.
But many of them have never done the thing that they're teaching.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So this is why, especially when it comes to business coaching in particular, it's just like, dude, if your business coach has hit that goal or a higher goal than even what they're offering you, it's like, okay, well, he's done it, right? Or she's done it. Like there has to be substance here because of the fact that they've reached that goal. And that can even apply to fitness. I mean, if the person has, I don't know, a six pack, or they have, a transformation where they've lost a huge amount of weight or whatever it is, it's like, okay, there's merit because that person has experienced the transformation. So I'm curious as well, as a follow-up question, what were some of the practical things that you learned, or what were some of the skills that you gained from the coaching programs that you've been a part of that you found valuable?
I think one of the most important skills is learning how to create a good offer. And free resource or near free resource, Alex Hormozi's $100 million offers. He describes it as, how do you create an offer so good that people feel stupid for saying no to?
Irresistible.
And there are, it's almost literally a mathematical equation as far as what you need to include, how you need to describe it in order to literally do exactly this. If the idea is you invest $5K, I guarantee you make $10K or your money back. Like that sounds like a pretty reasonable offer, right? If I know that I can double my money, and the only thing that's going to stop me from doubling my money is if I actually put in the work, that's a pretty dang good offer. And so what I find is that a lot of people who are trying to step into coaching, for example, have still not yet figured out what that value exchange looks like. We know how to accurately describe what we do and tell our story about who we are and our expertise and things like that. But I don't think that we understand fully the value exchange that we're expecting. And so learning how to spell out what you're doing within that kind of give and take relationship, I think, is perhaps one of the most important skill sets that people miss.
Creating an offer. Yeah. My coach currently is Myron Golden. I don't know if you've heard of him. There's a couple of people that may that are listening that may know him. And for him, it's like, dude, the faster you create an offer and put it out there, reiterate it if it doesn't work out, if there's no response, like the more iterations, the faster you get to having somebody accept your offer. I think now, kind of talking about a Christian perspective, we look at failure or mistakes many times as like sin, because we spiritualize mistakes, we spiritualize failure, and we see it as something really bad. But in the world of entrepreneurship, failure and mistakes are actually a good thing, because you learn from it. You learn from 100%. Your mistakes. You pivot. You switch directions. You slightly change the angle. And I mean, like, there's a quote, I think it's Michael Jordan, that says like, "Hurry up and fail so you can succeed." So it's like it's a very different worldview, I would say, from sometimes the way that we view mistakes within the church or within Christianity, in that worldview.
Yeah.
So
I had a
Yeah, go ahead.
student message me literally this morning. It's like, hey man, my first video did X number of views. My second video did this number of views. Can you give me some pointers? Like, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? What can I change? And I know the context, so I already knew the answer. But my question to him was like, wait, hold on. How many uploads have you done? He's like, 3. I'm like, bro, you don't even have data yet. Like, you literally don't have enough data to even make any kind of conclusions. It's like, is it the algorithm? Is it the hashtags? Is it this? Is like, bro, what I wanted to tell him was do 50 and then come back and then ask me the same question, because then I can actually like, we can sift through the data, like what's working, what's not working, what do we need to learn. I didn't want to overwhelm him, so I said try 20. But this is the kind of thinking is people are so averse to failing, and I get it, because every time I try something new, I'm scared of failure. If it's in the domain that I'm comfortable with, then I'm not worried about failure. But as soon as I step outside of my comfort zone, all of a sudden that insecurity pops up again. So if I'm trying something new, if I'm creating a new program and trying to offer that, the anxiety and the butterflies come back. But if it's my old stuff, like I've been there, done that, I'm confident that the value is there. But it's just so interesting how the fear of failure gets in the way for so many of us. And I think that you're right, man. Like, if we spiritualize it, then we are really getting in the way of just what could be. When I was training people how to do door-to-door sales, how do I increase my sales? It's simple, man. Like, how many doors are you knocking a day? Oh, 100. Double the number, you double your income. And that's the nice thing about that type of sales job, is that it's a direct cause and effect relationship. What you put in has a direct effect to what you put out. If you're a baseball player and you hit 1 out of every, or what's a good batting average? Let's say, or bad average. Let's say you're hitting 150 out of 1,000, right? What do? Just double your at bats. You're going to double your success rates in this sense. Like, and then you also get the benefit of improving. Right? The repetitions teach you something about it. And so this is the beautiful thing, is that you actually get to have control over how many at-bats that you get. As an entrepreneur, you get to control how many doors you knock on. You get to control how many offers you create. You get to control how many uploads you create, and how often you put yourself out there. And it's those who are not afraid of falling flat on their face and then getting up, dusting themselves off, and then tweaking the thing and making it better. Those are the ones that are actually going to make the biggest impact, in my opinion.
Yeah. So good. So good. My coach always refers back to Solomon, King Solomon. And something that he says is that Solomon wrote, I think it was like 3,000 proverbs and multiple songs and et cetera, et cetera. And because of the reps that he put in, of course, because of the wisdom that God gave him, but also because of the reps that he put in and how he demonstrated his expertise, people paid to come and hear of his wisdom. Like, you had the queen of, what was it? Queen of Sheba, I believe. And then you had people from Egypt, and you had different people come and pay to just sit in his presence for consultation, for coaching, in essence. And it's so interesting because, like what my coach says is that if you don't have at least 3,000 proverbs, right? The equivalent of that being, how many posts do you have on your Instagram? How many YouTube videos do you have? How many reels do you have? How many TikToks, whatever it is, then like, you just got to keep putting out the reps. You just got to keep pushing out the reps, So, man, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. So talk to me a little bit about your coaching program. And I believe you have another one that you recently launched or are in the process of launching. Talk to me a little bit about the Digital Missions Academy, and talk about that first, and then we could go to the second one.
Yeah, the Digital Missionary Academy is for pastors, it's for evangelists, it's for faith-based content creators who want to learn how to reach more people with the gospel. So what I focus on is helping them get sharper and sharper and sharper at what is the message and how do you contextualize it for the world today. This is fundamentally what we're talking about earlier as far as offer creation. How do you understand how you speak to the needs of the people that you're trying to reach? We equip them with the tools to be able to navigate social media so that they can understand good content creation, so that they can amplify their impact. But most importantly, for the people that I get to serve, they don't really actually care about the views. They don't actually care about the follower count. I describe them as vanity metrics, because ultimately what they care about ultimately is seeing people's lives changed, which is a very familiar type of value exchange in the entrepreneurial sense. It doesn't actually matter how many views you get, how many followers you get. When it comes to business, what matters is how much money do you create? Like how much income are you getting? Because if we have the ability to have millions of followers but no income because our business model is broken, or 5 followers but $1 million a year, we're going to take the latter every single time, because that's ultimately what matters. The students that I work with, they have that same type of thinking, but it's not even about money. It's about impact. What they want to see is people's lives changed for the better. They want to see marriages healed. They want to see people come to know who they are in Christ. They want to see people get set free from addiction and dysfunctional relationships and things like that. And so my program is all about how do you use the internet, sure, to get your message out there, to grow an audience, to reach millions of people. Fair enough. That's fine. Students in my program have reached over 500 million people with their message so far and growing.
Let's go.
But more than that, we're trying to teach them how do you actually take that attention online and then funnel it for discipleship purposes. That is, say, how do you build deeper connections and relationships with people through the internet so that you can have an impact on their life on a deeper level. And what's fun now is that, you know, being 9 years into this entrepreneurial journey and actually having several really healthy years of business ownership, so to speak, under my belt. Now I'm actually opening up this element of how do you not only do all those things that I just mentioned, but how do you also create the kind of revenue that empowers you to continue doing it long term. And so we've been able to explore with a handful of our students, what does it look like to build those systems for monetization? I've had a student who, while working full-time as a pastor, generated multiple 6 figures in under 12 months and only had 1,000 followers. And so it's really exciting to see, because once you have that access to that type of revenue, then you really get to do ministry on your own terms. You get to just say yes to the things that you feel God has called you to. And you can also similarly say no to the things that God did not call you to do, which in my understanding, many pastors don't feel the freedom to actually do that, to say yes or to say no. And so it's been a lot of fun. I guess we're kind of in the second major iteration of my coaching program, the Digital Missionary Academy 2.0, so to speak. And it's so much fun because we're able to see students get a lot further, so much faster, and all of it is for the sake of reaching people with the good news. And so that's kind of the heart of my program.
Yeah, good stuff, bro. That's awesome. And the monetization part too. And this is something that needs to be said. And I think those that are listening to this already know this. And I mean, this is also kind of an introduction to for a lot of people to online entrepreneurship, ministry, etc. Monetization allows you to do this full time, or at least to put more time and more energy into it. Right. So sometimes, again, especially in the ministry side of things, in the church side of things, we demonize it and we say, "Oh, you're making money off of Jesus' name, or you're making money off of the gospel, and this and that, and this is evil. That's prosperity gospel, etc." But it's like, no, like this actually gives the leverage and the freedom to do what God is calling us to do. In the same way that people give tithe or give offering or give generously to a church in order for the church to do God's work, it requires finances. It requires funds. So I just think it's awesome that you're adding that part to your program, because, bro, I mean, there's so many people, unfortunately, and I was in a similar position not too long ago, where I felt I had to compromise, or I had to kind of zip my lips to certain things that I felt God was calling me to speak about because of the system that I was working under, and I felt like I didn't have that freedom, right? But if you are monetizing your influence, you're an online coach, or you are an influencer, whatever it is that you want to call it, a leader in the online space, and monetizing that, it does give you the freedom to speak out almost prophetically, right? In the way that God calls us to sometimes, without feeling like, oh man, like my income is going to get cut off if I speak what the Lord is putting on my heart.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's good.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, this is really the heart of it, is giving ministry leaders the tools to be able to pursue unashamedly their calling. Right.
That's good.
Again, so it comes back to digital missions, right? Most missionaries, if they're gonna live overseas, I got some friends that are currently in Cambodia. They are probably now, I do the math, maybe 5 years into a 10-year journey. Like they committed 10 years to go to Cambodia. Well, what does that process look like? Well, they go from church to church to church, sharing their story. Basically, what is the vision that God has given them? What are they seeking to do? Yada, yada, yada. And then ultimately, at some point, they're like, and this is kind of what it takes. We need people to partner with us to be able to empower this thing. And that's great. We've all been to a church or a concert where Compassion International shows up and says, hey, we're going to help, sponsor these kids so that they can have this. So there's a missional component to it. And we all understand that missions does require money. At minimum, to fly to that other part of the world, to be able to provide filters so that the water can be sanitized, to be able to build a church, to be able to provide jobs for people, fill in the blank. Missions requires some level of money. Now, here's the beautiful thing. What if you didn't actually have to go fundraise the money every single time that you wanted to say yes to God? What if instead of going from church to church and fundraising, what if instead you could literally do the ministry that you feel called to do? What if actually doing the mission work itself was the way to fund the ministry? So I'll give you an example. One of my students is someone who is really excited about helping people get free from an addiction to pornography. Right? This was a person who's spent 20 plus years addicted to this thing and almost lost his marriage as a result of it. Over the years, he's just been doing the content creation thing for free, basically, and has not really ever monetized kind of that impact. He's just doing free things for people and has had hundreds of people come through kind of what he's done. And long story short, their lives have been impacted by this. So we had some conversations, say, hey, man, you're already doing this thing. What would it look like to actually formalize it, create a coaching program so that you could do this in a more concentrated manner? Because you're already on the phone with people, talking to them about what you've learned and coaching them through it, supporting them through prayer. So long story short, about 30 days ago, we sat down and schemed out this thing and we launched a program. It was about a week ago that we announced the beginning of this program. And 30 days from when we kind of started the process to today, he's collected just shy at this moment. Hold on, maybe I check my email. Let's see if we got an update real quick, because we're right there on that. Okay, so we got some interest. Okay, so maybe if this email goes well, in 30 days, this guy has generated $15,000 worth of revenue.
Let's go.
What does that mean? He now gets to legitimately spend more time with these people, coaching them through the thing that he's been coaching people through. In other words, the income fuels the ministry that he's already wanting to do. So what's happened is previously he was spending a meaningful amount of his time substitute teaching at a public school. And he's just sitting there, proctoring tests, hitting play on the DVD player, what are the cases, for X number of hours. And he's generating, $1,500 a month doing this kind of part-time gig. I said, bro, why are you doing that? You're not called to sit here and babysit kids. You're called to actually impact people's lives. But here's the cool thing now is, let's say he was doing 20 hours a week substitute teaching. Now he gets to replace the substitute teaching with 20 hours of just doing ministry. And for what it's worth, he gets a pay raise in the process too.
Yes,
so that's the way that we think about it, is that there's a relationship between these two things. I get it. It doesn't have to be unethical. It doesn't have to be anti-spiritual. And it actually can bring life to the people that you're trying to serve. So that's why I'm excited about the programs that I get to offer, as I get to help students do exactly that.
Dude, so good. So good. Yeah. This is just something I long for so many people. Like the purpose of this podcast, is an expression. This is an expression of that longing I have to give people the freedom to actually do what God is calling them to do, and actually to use their skills to make an impact in a way that they don't need to spend the majority of their day sitting behind a desk doing something else for some company that has nothing to do with their calling and is unaligned. when they could, if they had the systems, if they had the knowledge on how to do it, right, to structure it, to, you know, create something that impacts positively the world with their expertise, with their knowledge. Because I believe everybody has something. Everybody has a unique perspective. I'm not saying everybody is the foremost number one expert of every single thing in the world, but the simple fact that you're just a few steps ahead of somebody else, somebody's willing to learn from you.
Yeah.
Somebody is willing to hire you as a mentor to learn how to move those 2 steps forward where you have gotten, because they've been stuck in the same place for 20 plus years, 30 plus years, however many years. Right. So yeah, this is why we're here, man. And I just love that, that you're helping other people do the same thing, bro. And again, there's risk involved. There's courage that is needed. There's faith that's needed, to step out and to do something like this. But for many people, like even to fall flat on your face the first month or, you know, whatever is better than what you're doing right now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you just had 20 hours for $1,500 sitting, you know, babysitting kids or whatever. It's like, I know there's someone who's going to listen to this or is listening to this right now who is just like, man, like, I just need a way out.
Yeah.
I know I'm made for more. I know I'm capable of something more, and I just need a way out. And
yeah,
we're here to help. We're you know, I'm going to be putting links in the description. You can connect with me, with Justin, whatever's aligned with you, because like ever since I discovered this, like really just 4 or 5 months ago, my brain has just like been broken. I'm just like, dude, what the heck is this? Why did I not know about this before, you know, I spent 40K or 50K on a master's degree and an extra 4 years of a bachelor's degree, and God will use everything, right? Like, I'm
Totally.
not regretting it. But what I am saying is that, if you have the knowledge, if you have the awareness of something that is better, of a route that may be more aligned with you, with your personality, you know, if you have a pioneer spirit, like Justin was saying, this very well could be the space for you. So yeah, let's wrap up. This has been so good, Justin. Thank you, bro. But I want to ask you, man, like, honestly, do you think this space is for everyone? And I know the answer is no, obviously, like if we're thinking logically, but like, talk to me a little bit about like the person who's considering this. Like, what would you say to that person who is considering becoming an online coach or online entrepreneur of any kind? What would you leave them with as we wrap up here?
Yeah, man. Maybe this isn't exactly what you're fishing for, but it might speak to the right person. I have found, and I'm curious to know if you know, you've been in this space for a couple months now. Do you see this trend? Are you even aware of it yourself? Mm-hmm. But for me, the more and more entrepreneurs that I meet, I often find that we share something in common. And the thing that I find that we share in common is ADD, ADHD. We were terrible students in the traditional sense. I was. Yeah. And we're also the kinds of people that when we get something in our brain, like, we can't let it go, right? Hyperfixate on something. That's actually what I love about being an entrepreneur the most, is that because if I won the lottery today and I had an extra $1 billion in my bank account, Chris, do you know how my life would change? Almost not at all. Yeah. Like, I might have a nicer studio, I might have a nicer house, but as far as what I choose to do with my time, it would be the exact same.
The same thing.
That's because I love what I do, and it's the kind of thing where I'm not even worried about clocking in, clocking out, because it's just something that I've fixated on. And I've found that to be true for so many other entrepreneurs, is that they're that kind of person. That when it's the wrong thing, there's nothing in the world that can get you to do it. But when it's the right thing, there's nothing in the world that can stop you from doing it. As far as like your attention and what you put into it. And so maybe this is one weird way to encourage. If any of your listeners actually are the neurodivergent type, you got ADD, ADHD, the traditional school system has failed you, fill in the blank. you might literally be genetically predisposed to not go the traditional route.
Yeah.
You might actually be designed by God to be a visionary. And that's the reason why your mind can't stop thinking about the thing that you want, is because God has actually wired you in such a way that you are called to go create the thing that you can see that no one else sees.
Yeah.
And so if that's you, first off, I just want you to be seen, and I want you to feel like you're heard, because I know what it's like to be like, am I broken? Like, what's wrong with me? Why is it that everyone else seems to be fine in this classroom and I'm just like struggling? Like, the struggle bus is real.
Yeah.
I want you to know you're not alone. And I want to even offer gently that entrepreneurship, being a business owner, yada, 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 this actually might be where what was a weakness your whole life is actually a superpower. Like, I meet people on occasion who find out in their adult life that they have ADD or ADHD, and that there's a couple phases that I see them go through. On the first hand, like, they're just like, the burden is off their shoulders, because they're like, finally someone understands me, like someone gets what I'm going through. And there's like a season where they're actually quite happy about it. But then there's a following season of almost depression, where it's like, even though I know this about myself, I can't change myself. And so I'm still suffering in my work relationships and everything else like that. What I want to tell them is, like, maybe literally you're called to do something abnormal. You're wired by God in a unique way as a visionary, where you should not go the path most commonly taken.
Yeah.
If someone told me today, here is, like, I got my multivitamins. Here's some multivitamin. Here's a medicine, and it can take away your ADD, ADHD with no side effects. No, I'm not interested. ADHD for me today is a superpower. It's the thing that allows me to be successful in this area of my life where others struggle. I'm keeping it because it is a superpower in this line of work. So maybe a weird way to say it. No, it's not for everybody, but it may be more likely that it's for you if you're one of the neurodivergent types.
Wow. I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
I wasn't fishing for anything in particular, but I did not. That was all the way left field.
Any chance
good.
you got ADHD, Chris? I doubt it, because you went to a good school. You seem like a scholarly type.
Bro, I don't even know what I have. I have something. I have something. I don't know what it is. If you ask my wife, she'll just say that I need help. but nah, bro. Thank you so much, man, for your insight, bro. Like, 9 years of entrepreneurship, bro. You can't learn that in a book. You can't learn that in a classroom. You know, you've put in the reps, bro. And I really appreciate your perspective, your time. And somebody's gonna listen to this. I don't know who. If it's gonna be now, maybe a year from now. That's the thing about YouTube. It's like, bro, it's just evergreen, and just people are on it. But yeah, I just know that this is going to bless somebody, even in the spiritual sense, because we want to build something that's going to have an eternal impact, right? Like, dude, money comes and goes. As entrepreneurs, we both know we get highs, we get lows. We lose something, and eventually we get it back through some different means. But yeah, man. Yeah, we're here to build something that makes an impact for people for the rest of eternity. So thank you, Justin Khoe, for joining. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And we will see you guys next time on the Dream Coach Pod. Peace out.